Good evening, everybody. Welcome into another Sober Dad Sunday. My name is Matt. I am the convener of this space. I am a sober person. I've been in recovery for a little over 2.5 years. I'm a dad. I have 3 kids, and it is Sunday night. But you don't have to be near those things to be part of this conversation. You can be just curious about this, any of this, and just be here. I'm trying to make my brain function right now because we've been on the road for about the last 8 hours. My wife and my youngest child, Jonah, and I all went to the Wild Goose Festival in North Carolina. Just got back literally within the last hour to our home here in Louisville. So a lot of busyness and being on the move, and of course being out in the heat because we camped out there as part of the thing at Wild Goose. Not everybody camps, but most folks there do stay on site, engage in all that fun stuff with each other. By the end, we know each other smell when we're been out there in the heat on a North Carolina farm for a couple of days. One of the lovely aspects of Wild Goose is that there's a lot of freedom there, a lot of self-expression. A lot of people feel free to party and do other things, but there's a number of folks that also are in recovery, and so we have twice daily meetings for folks in recovery from all different kinds of things. Most of us alcohol and other substances like that, but there were folks that joined us that had some other things, folks that are in Al-Anon, things of that nature, and that's always a really tremendous part of Wild Goose for me. Is connecting with those folks, talking about our journeys, some of our issues sometimes. There's a big beer and hymns thing every night. That's one of the highlights of Wild Goose, and it's lots of fun. I remember being just a couple months in being sober, going to Wild Goose, and at Beer and Hymns, the beer smell was just a little too much for me, so I needed to go. That was the only time in the last couple of years the smell of alcohol has ever made me uncomfortable in that way. Hasn't happened since, but that's been a group and a space that's been really good for me to have that while I'm there, kind of in an unfamiliar environment. When you're out of your routine and different stuff, that can mess up your recovery. So, the reason I wanted to share about that tonight is the some of the folks that come to those recovery meetings at Wild Goose are folks that I have known and have met at previous festivals, but most of them were new to me. Didn't know them before a couple of days ago. But very quickly, stuff got real. Sometimes stuff got really raw with each other. And by the last one we had this morning, there was a tremendous sense of intimacy among a lot of different people there. It was really lovely. And there were some folks that came that were kind of recovery adjacent or interested in certain things. I'm not gonna say a lot of details because those aren't my stories to tell. But they came somewhat tentatively. Said, "Well, you said if you're interested, I could be here, so I'm here." So I'm glad you are. They started opening up about their stuff, and to a person, those ones that came kind of tentatively and began to open up said that it was because somebody else there dared to be vulnerable, dared to share some of their stuff, and that was permission giving. Those folks heard something maybe of their own story, or just saw an example of somebody else just being willing to kind of put it out there. And that gave them permission, and that gave them the courage to be open and vulnerable about their own stuff and come into a place where they could begin exploring that and continue on their own road of healing. So tonight, I just want to encourage everybody that's seeing this, whether it's live or whenever, to take the risk to share yourself, to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there. Because you never know. You never know who it's affecting. You never know who it might give permission to be open about their own stuff and begin to ask for help. You never know who it might encourage. You never know who might hear a bit of their own story in yours. Most of the good that happens when we put stuff out there in the world, the ripple effects that happen, most of that stuff that we're never going to know. Occasionally, it comes back around and we find out, and we get to celebrate those things, and they're awesome, and they're gifts to encourage us to keep going, to keep putting it out there. But for the most part, we're not going to know. We really have no idea the ripple effects. That's okay, because it's not up to us. This is I believe, as a person of faith, that God is the one kind of weaving all these strands together that we put out there into something beautiful and a whole bigger than the sum of its parts. So I just encourage you guys to take the risk, to be vulnerable, and to share. The question I want to put before you all tonight is, have you ever had an experience where you have been brave and put something out there and you found out that it's encouraged somebody else? Put that down in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube and share about that. Or have you had an experience where somebody has given you permission to be vulnerable? Somebody else has taken that risk and encouraged you. Share that experience down in the comments. And if that person who's taken that risk doesn't know the good they did for you, and you have some means to tell them, I encourage you to tell them. Help that ripple effect get back to them so they can be encouraged. That's all I got for tonight, because again, I've been on the road for a bunch of hours. I've been out in the heat for a couple of days. But I thank you for joining me tonight. As always, I encourage each and every one of you to keep working and striving, putting it all out there. Put your best work and energy into being the best version of you for the people around you, because they're worth it. And most of all, put your best work and your best energy into being the best version of you for you, because you're worth it.